On May 31st, 2020, Centro Cultural Mexicano attended 2 actions in support of Black Lives Matter, one in Redmond, Washington, and one in Kirkland, Washington. We are thankful to the community members who spoke with us, and we want to make it clear Centro Cultural Mexicano supports Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Would you like to say your name and your affiliation?
Hi everyone, I'm Kelly Curtis, Kirkland City Council member.
And why are you here today, Kelly?
Because it's important to show solidarity with the community. Everybody is devastated and heartbroken by the recent events. And I'm so proud of the people that are here today that can show peaceful protest and all work together for systemic change.
Thank you. And what do you see the city of Kirkland doing that can further those kinds of goals?
There's always more steps to take. Kirkland does have a welcoming and inclusive initiative, and we put the forefront of how we can be a welcoming community, but we're not perfect. So we're always looking for new ways to make change and really listen to our community about what they need and what kind of change they need. And so we're always working on that.
Great. And does the city work with community organizations to talk about these kinds of issues and to illuminate some of the things that are happening in our Black and brown community?
Yes, and sadly we were working on that initiative before the pandemic began, and we were having quite a few community conversations with Black and brown people about what they needed in Kirkland and what they needed to feel welcome and part of this community.
Yeah.
And sadly, because of the pandemic, everything has to be put on hold. So our hopes is that soon that we'll be able to restart those conversations.
That's great. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Could you please state your name and your affiliation?
Sure, my name is Amy Falcone. I'm a Kirkland resident, mom of 3, and I'm a Kirkland City Council member.
And why are you here today, Amy?
I'm here today because I believe that Black Lives Matter, and there's been a history of systemic racism in America for far too long, and it's time that we stand up and make social change. And I am thrilled that there's so much will for positive social change in our country right now, and we need to do something about it. We need to speak up, and we can't be silent any longer.
Absolutely. And as a city council member, what do you see your city doing to further those kinds of goals?
Well, I think as City Council, it's our job to represent everyone in our city, and it's our job to take a really hard, deep look at the systemic racism that exists in all of our institutions. Nobody and no community is immune from systemic racism and bias, and we need to continue to do the work of really being a truly welcoming, inclusive, and safe city for everybody. And that's something that was really important to me and why I ran for City Council, and it's something that I'll continue to do in all the work. Every decision that we make, I think of how equity plays into that and how that impacts the most vulnerable residents in our population.
Excellent, thank you. And are you working with community groups and people in the community who are directly impacted by some of these, by the institutional racism and systemic racism that we see throughout?
That's a really good question. You know, before joining Kirkland City Council, I was co-chair of the Kirkland Human Services Commission, and we did a lot of work to make sure that the most basic needs of all of our residents in this community are met. And I think something that we've known for a while, but that's really come to the forefront during the COVID-19 crisis, is just the gaps and the inequities in our community and the resources available and accessing the resources for human services and also for small businesses in our community, for minority-owned businesses. And so I've been working as a council member representing our city in a lot of efforts to really focus on how to equitably provide resources to everyone in our community who needs it. And a lot of that involves partnering with community-based organizations such as yourselves to really make sure that we bridge the gap and break down those barriers to reaching those resources for everyone in our community.
Great. And if people in the community are looking for a direct line to resources, or if they experience a hate crime, or is there a place on the city website that they can go to be heard and to get information?
There is. So there's information on the city website for both residents and businesses for COVID-19 specific information. There's also information available to report any sort of crime, hate crime, any sort of interaction with police if you need to report anything. That's all available on our website. Folks are always also welcome to contact city council members at any time. You can email me personally at afalcone@kirklandlaw.gov as well, and I'd be happy to help any members of our community.
That's great. Thank you, Amy, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the work you guys are doing.
Hi, Janice. Could you tell us why you're here today?
Yes, absolutely. I'm here because I believe that silence is consent. And Black lives absolutely matter. And until we truly address the institutional racism that's in our country, we will not have justice for all. And we all lose in that instance. So the more that we show up for each other and talk about what does the hope for our country look like, and how are we absolutely addressing the anti-Black, and how do we truly be anti-racist. And what that means is calling out when we see those inequities happening, when we see those microaggressions, when we see the racial inequities that are happening in our country and in our community. Because those little slights, like what happened in New York City with Christian Cooper, can lead to things like what happened with George Floyd. And to me, when will silence be enough? It is never enough. And in the middle of a pandemic where we're seeing the racial inequities of the people that are dying from COVID-19, if not now, when will we actually do something? So I'm here in solidarity, united against our Black community. And I hope that they realize that we are in this together. And as an Asian American, we also play a part in making sure that we address any anti-Blackness and stand together with all people of color, Black and Indigenous, to make sure that we truly have justice for everyone.
Thank you, Janice. As a Bellevue City Council member, what do you see the role of the city in addressing racism, institutional racism, and anti-Blackness?
I think we need to look at our policies. We need to listen to our Black, Indigenous, and people of color in our community, because it's not about us being their voice. It's about us bringing out their voices. It's about us amplifying their voices. And it's not preempting their voice or speaking for them. So the more that we come together to do that, the better off we're going to be globally as a community.
Does the city of Bellevue work specifically with and directly with communities that are affected, communities of color, Black and brown communities?
Yes, we do. So the city manager set up a Bellevue Diversity, Bellevue Diversity Advisory Network. And within our police department, we also have multiple advisory groups that include, they're specifically with those communities to better understand and understand their voices. So those things are happening. Yet I also believe that we can't sit on our laurels and believe that is enough. Because obviously, when we look around the country, it is something we need to be thinking about and doing every single day.
As a representative of the people, can people contact you directly if they have questions or concerns?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So my email is jzon@bellevuelaw.gov.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. Now, could you tell us a little bit about why you're here?
I'm here to stand up for Black lives and to loudly say that Black lives matter. Because in this society, in this culture, silence is violence. So if you believe that Black lives matter, it's important to stand on your street corner and yell that.
Thank you. And do you see that? Do you find over time that our institutions and governments, do you find that you have a place to go to voice these concerns? Do you feel heard by our institutions?
I would say generally no. I think that there are a lot of well-intentioned people in institutions and government who do care, but who don't challenge the system that they see every day, and that makes people feel silenced about these issues that Black Lives Matter. So instead, what people do is to go on the street and to talk about it with each other, because that seems to be so much more effective in getting police accountability for Black lives.
Yes. And what do you think? Do you see in your generation? Do you see a call to action? Do you see that there is more action happening, or how do you see your generation in all of this?
Like in terms of being vocal, or
in terms of being vocal or recognizing what is happening.
I mean, I think more people my generation understand that you have to be loud about this. You have to state, you have to post it on social media, you have to tell your friends, you have to bring up these conversations, because that is the only thing that truly changes our society and makes it more integrated and makes it more welcoming. And I think that people in previous generations, from the civil rights movement, from all types of Black leaders all over the country, have shown us and demonstrated that that has worked throughout history, and that this is our moment to do that.
Yeah. Now, I know that there are not a lot of places where we see, let's say, where we see hate crimes in our community, that everyone can see clearly what is happening. There are not a lot of places where it's compiled. Do you hear from friends and acquaintances and social media that things are happening in our communities of that nature?
Absolutely, and the media is just not reporting this at all. Like, I have been glued to my phone more than I have ever been in my entire life the past 2 days, and I have seen Instagram stories of people being murdered in their cars in Minneapolis. One of my best friends is in Minnesota right now, and KKK shooters are coming into their rallies and disrupting peaceful protests. And that's why people are coming in riot gear now, instead of what should be just community members kneeling and saying that Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
So this is war, and the media is not covering this, and the president is not caring. He's inciting people to fight back against peaceful supporters.
Yes. Thank you so much.
For people who don't know what to do, I would say never underestimate the ability to just make a sign and stand on your sidewalk. That does so much. Every single car that drives by sees that people are talking about this, and you are refusing to change the conversation in society. Don't think that you can't do anything no matter what skin color you are. You can. And if you don't, then that silence is your violence, and you need to own that.
Yes. Thank you. Hi, thank you for agreeing to speak with us. And could you tell us a little bit about why you're here today?
I'm here today because when I moved to the States 3 years ago for freedom, I expected everyone to have it, but we were given the opportunity to come here and be free, but seeing other citizens that don't know another home, not having this opportunity to be free and just run around the neighborhood and without being worried that they'll be killed or face any violence makes me really upset. I want everyone to feel safe the same way I came here to feel safe.
Do you see that those kinds of feelings repeated, and do you think that people that you know are aware that this is happening, and how do you see just socially your generation kind of viewing what is going on?
I do believe that a high percentage knows how important going on protests and vocalizing our opinion is, but at the same time I feel like a lot of people don't recognize that they can make a difference, and they don't see how if they just show up to a protest and stand between the police and a person of color, they're supporting them big time, and they are preventing any destruction. But that's why also my generation, I think, believes in peace, and we try to communicate this with our friends, because my friend was earlier speaking here. We tried, sorry.
It's okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead. That's fine.
We try to communicate all the time and vocalize and just let them know that they have something, they have power. Their color is powerful, and them showing support and being there with the less fortunate people who face racism here, it's very important, and it has a big effect on everyone.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you would like to add that we haven't talked about?
I really think it's a great time for us to come protest. We're all quarantined, we don't have jobs, we don't have schools to go to. I mean, we can do that from work, from home. It's a great time for everyone to come and show support. You don't have to do so much, you don't even have to bring a sign, just stand up there with your brothers and sisters, and that would mean the world to them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Hello, thank you for speaking with us today. Would you like to state your name or your affiliation?
Hi, I'm JL. I'm a community member who's here to mourn with the rest of the community for the needless loss of life.
Thank you for speaking with us, Dale. What are you seeing? What you mentioned to me earlier off camera some things that you've been discussing or conversing with other people about. Do you want to talk a little bit about the thoughts that you have about everything that's been happening?
Yes, thank you. Well, I find that even at this time when the nation is in mourning and we are seeing pent-up frustration from so many centuries of injustice, that there are some people who don't see themselves as racist who are still bringing anti-black tropes into the conversation. And a lot of this is not conscious, but I just think that as people want history to not repeat itself, maybe we do need to work on ourselves to move forward, to question ourselves as to what kind of narratives are we propagating when we share certain opinions or certain news about other people, and why do we share those stories, and what are we hoping to get out of it, and whether we are doing any harm in the process. And I think that's a conversation that every community needs to have. And unfortunately, it just seems that there's so much invisible violence that we do to people who are part of our communities, and the stories that we curate and choose to propagate. All this indirectly contribute to violence against minorities, and I think going forward, maybe if we could all be a little bit more conscious about what we say, what we choose to share, and what impact that would have on other people and on our larger social culture, we might be able to make this a better place to live.
I agree with you. I've been noticing the same thing, especially on social media. A lot of sharing of anti-black messaging, and it contributes to the problems that we have in this country. Contributes to that underlying racism and acceptance. What would you say that we can do when we see this, even from people who don't see? How would you address this?
I would suggest to them if they could just be conscious that minorities don't always have the luxury of being seen as individuals, that any story that's read about one of us reflects on all of us in some way, especially when it's negative, because our brains tend to retain negative stories more. It's part of human instinct for survival. We remember the negatives. So if they really insist that they want to share that negative story, can they commit to at least sharing 3 positive stories about whatever group that they're sharing a negative story about?
Thank you. Is there anything else that you have been thinking about, or that you've been seeing come up in conversations that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I think most of my friends of all colors are just very, very sad that there's this unnecessary loss of life again and again and again, and we hope that it's the last time, but I guess it's up to us to decide where we want to go as a society, and I really thank you for being here to speak to the community about their reactions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joy Randall, and I live in Redmond, Washington.
Thank you for speaking with us, Joy.
Sure.
And what brings you here today, specifically?
Well, with what's been happening most recently, I really felt like I had to at least show some support to come out and hold these signs so that people can see that there are many that care about what is happening right now. It's been a struggle because of this pandemic. I struggled with not going to Seattle yesterday, and it was kind of killing me not to go. With what's happened, I am actually glad now I didn't go. But today, a friend asked me, and I thought, I need to, at least for a little bit. I've not been around a lot of people for the last 3 months, so, but I felt like this was important.
Yes, absolutely. And can you talk a little bit about the sign that you're holding? A lot of our Black and Brown communities are in pain. It's devastating, and these kinds of injustices have been happening for a long time, generation after generation after generation. Can you talk about this sign a little bit?
Yes. Well, when I was making the sign before I came out, I was thinking, okay, what else can I say? I was thinking silence equals complicity. I have no justice, no peace. Mm-hmm. But this side, I saw a friend of mine post on her Facebook page, and to me, it just so resonated with a very big problem that's happening. And in fact, this morning, I'm part of a group called Redmond Chat Cafe on Facebook, and someone on there posted, hey, why do people have to post about what's going on downtown with the nonsense, the riots? If you need to talk about it, use Twitter or Instagram. This is not even in our community. Not until protesters come walking down 520 Redmond Town Center, Redmond Ridge, should you be scared. I don't fear. And I was like, you know what? This is the problem. Where people, particularly white, privileged people, have turned a blind eye. They don't speak up. They don't stand up. And that has been the biggest problem.
Yes, I agree. And a lot of times I see, particularly the white community, saying things like, oh, incidents don't happen around here. Can you talk about that a little bit?
We live in a bubble here. I'm an Asian, I'm Filipino, and I acknowledge I have privilege. I still have privilege. I live here, I have my own house, I've been able to, isolate, and I acknowledge the privilege, and living here is a bubble on this east side. I think that in many ways, it is a disadvantage because too many people don't realize that they have to step up. And that's why we're still struggling. This country is still struggling. More white people have to stand up. More people of privilege have to stand up because nothing is going to change.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hi, Angie Nopos Yusuf here, Director of Centro Cultural Mexicano. We're here at Redmond Downtown Park, and we are at a Black Lives Matter protest in support of Black Lives Matter. We're going to interview some people and talk about what's been happening and why people are here. Thank you for being here and talking with us. We are at Redmond Downtown Park. Would you like to talk a little bit about why you're here and what is on your mind as you're here at this event, at this protest?
Yeah, sure. My name is Janet Richards. This has been a really hard week. Both passing the milestone of 100,000 deaths, and especially with so many of those deaths being people of color, both Black and brown people, really impacted me. It's been really hard to watch that hit minority communities in our country. And then on top of it all, to have had these incidents with both Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and now George Floyd, it just felt like one blow after the other. And so it was really important to me to say that Black and brown lives matter. And unfortunately in our country, we haven't had a history of our lives mattering. It's been easy to put us at the bottom of the list after we take care of the economy and property and everything else, that, oh, now your life matters. And so we're saying, no, our life matters like everyone else.
Yes, thank you. And I think we're seeing with COVID-19 how a lot of communities outside of Black and Brown, a lot of the white community is kind of saying, oh, what is this that's happening with the disproportionate numbers of Black and Brown people being infected and dying? And how can we move forward? We know that there is systemic injustice, systemic racism that drives a lot of this. How can we move forward from here?
Well, I mean, I think this is an example. We move forward together. I know with myself, it wouldn't be as impactful if it was a bunch of Black people standing here saying Black lives. Because of course we think our lives matter. But to have other people of other races saying, we agree with you, your life does matter. We can develop shared and united priorities. We believe the economy matters. We believe not destroying buildings matter. Like there's so many things that we can agree on, but when we insist on promoting our platform first instead of finding those places that we can agree on, we end up where we are as a nation. And so I really believe that it takes, like what you're doing now, it takes dialogue, it takes conversations, it takes understanding what our different experiences are. You may not know that COVID-19 affects my community differently than it affects yours. But when we sit down and talk, I can tell you that. And you may not know anyone that has died, but I do. And so we have to have more conversations. We have to build up a tolerance to be able to hear perspectives that are different than ours. And we have to be able to stand down and say, maybe I don't have to talk all the time. Maybe sometimes I get to listen. So,
no, I think you make a very good point about that, about communities coming together and that dialogue being so important. I know that when we talk about a lot of the injustices that happen to Black and Brown communities, I know that in the white community doesn't always see or is not always aware. A lot of things are kind of buried and hidden. And so do you see any of that happening? Where there are incidents or there are things happening, but it doesn't get out into the wider community or the wider public knowledge?
Yeah. Well, when we drove here, my daughter reminded me, we were at a local mall late last year, and it was my daughter and her best friend. We're both standing right there, and my daughter is racially profiled in the store in that mall. She was there with her best friend, and the security guard singled out her and accused her of stealing. And my daughter's 13, and aggressively interviewed her and frightened her. When she finally caught up with us, she burst into tears. And that's here, that's in our community. And there are a lot of people who would say, well, how do you know that that's a racism thing? Well, I can't say definitively. But I can say she was with her best friend. They were there the whole entire time. Both of them had bags. Both of them were looking at the same merchandise. But between the two of them, he assumed she was stealing. When I confronted him, he said, well, she looked suspicious. And I didn't like the way she looked. Well, she was wearing a hoodie. And she looked more urban. And so what am I to think as a mother? And how am I to protect my daughter? I mean, we live on the east side of Seattle. That was the last thing I expected to happen on an outing to the mall, but it happened here. And thankfully it didn't escalate. And thankfully he didn't arrest her or detain her. But that very easily could have happened.
Hi, and thank you for joining us to speak with us today. Can you tell me your name and any affiliations that you might have?
My name is Bishri Ramanathan, and
citizen of Redmond who is sad and wanted to do my little bit to stand up for what I believe in, that Black lives definitely matter.
Thank you. And what kind of conversations are you having in your community or with people that you know about this issue? Are you finding that people are aware of what is happening?
Yes, I talk about this in my own family. I have a 9-year-old boy and my husband, and we definitely discuss this. And we also discuss it in the Indian community. And just got to do the right thing. And everybody should be able to live with dignity, no matter the color of your skin. So, yeah, because it's so very important.
And do you having a young child, do you feel that our institutions are addressing this in the way that they should be? We have we have schools and hospitals and government. Are you finding a place for discussion there?
My son goes to Horace Mann, and I must say that I feel lucky that he goes to Horace Mann. The principal, the teachers, the whole community, including all the parents, are very open, and I have seen my child bring home work from school which talks about how equality is important. So I'm happy and I'm proud that he goes to a public school here in Redmond, which is teaching him those values.
And is there anything else that you would like to talk about? Anything that you see in the community, or anything that you'd like to express to the community?
Sure. I would just say to all my friends and all my brothers and sisters from the Indian community, from the Asian community, from the Hispanic community, from the Black community and the white community, we are all in this together. So we've got to stand up together, and silence is not a good answer. So we've got to stand up and show the world that we are in this together and that we care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for speaking with us today.
Hi.
Would you like to identify yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Yes, I'm Brooke Buckingham, and I live just outside of Redmond, and have lived here for about 14 years now, and I also work for the city. So,
Brooke, can you tell us why you're here? What brought you here today?
So I actually just have been watching a lot of the news and have done a number of trainings on issues of equity and injustice, and really felt compelled to do something. And so I reached out to my friend Janet and just said, hey, you want to join me? Let's just meet in front of City Hall, and reached out to a couple friends, and I just felt really powerless about what's going on, and even though it's a small thing, just doing something to let people know that this is not okay, what's going on in the world. Let people know that I see them and I hear them.
Thank you for that. And you mentioned trainings. Are you finding that those trainings are addressing some of the systemic racism and some of the ongoing injustices that are happening in our country?
Yes. So, you know, what's interesting is that I grew up in a very small town in Oregon, and I don't think there were very many people of color, and I grew up where my parents were like, we respect all people, and we just didn't really, probably in the mindset like, well, we don't even notice the difference. And so I couldn't take credit for that because I was like, I didn't know what I didn't know. And it wasn't until probably in the last 10 years that I really understood the history of our country and how that impacts people of color, and that what I was born with, when I was born with privilege, and what I can just walk away and people of color have to worry about. And so some of the trainings, the first training that I ever went to where it's really eye-opening is through the People's Institute. And I think it's called Undoing Institutional Racism, and it's very powerful. And so that was a 2-day training. And then really it's just about kind of learning for yourself and just being aware and having conversations with people and trying to, even tell my kids about what this means and what you carry with you, the impact that you have in your actions, and that you need to be standing up for your friends. And so my children have friends of all different cultures and backgrounds, and I think we have an obligation to be standing up.
You bring up a good point about personal obligation, and you also bring up another good point about educating our kids. We know that racism permeates our institutions, and how can we, do you think our schools are moving in the right direction, or how can we address that within our schools?
That's a hard question. So I know that I actually was part of Lake Washington School District brought together an equity committee, and I was part of that group, and that was definitely a step in the right direction. And I think that the main thing is that we find ourselves, and this is just an example, and I know that working in government, that sometimes when we're called out on something where people say, this happened or I wasn't informed, that we immediately want to go to the defense and say, okay, well, we told you about this, or we sent this letter, or these are all the great things that we're doing. And I think that we need to recognize that sometimes it's just validating and acknowledging that it really is never enough, and that we have hundreds of years of history, and that it's not a checkbox. And so making sure that the school district validates and acknowledges the experiences that students are having. And I think it's a step in the right direction that they brought this committee together, but being aware of who's in the room and are they the right people in the room. And so we had to shift the makeup of that group, and I think that was something that was positive, but lots of work still to be done, obviously. Yes.
Thank you for that. Hi, thank you for speaking with us.
Absolutely.
I know that this is a very difficult and painful time for Black and Brown communities, but specifically for the Black community. And could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name's Colin. I've been in Redmond for just over 10 years. Moved here from England, and here with my wife and family. And been a part of this community and love living here, and love living in America. But yes, it's a really difficult time. It's been a trying week, but this isn't the first time. And we're out here just bringing awareness to what's going on, and we're uniting. And I think it's great to see that there's all colours here, and you're all representing one cause. So.
Yeah. Now I know that you have a child, and you talked about how this isn't the first time that this has happened, and of course this goes back hundreds of years in this country. What kinds of things can we? How can we talk to our children about this? And what kinds of things do you say to your child?
I have brought the awareness to my kids. I have been, especially recently, I've been showing them that one, what they see is real. There is love in the world, and I'm teaching them to love. I'm teaching them that there is also hate in the world, and that they're going to encounter things that are hurtful. But they need to be aware that what they see, and I don't hide things that we see on TV. It's very real. I think they should be educated. I really want them to have a diversity in friendships. I think the more education, the better. So I don't want them to be ignorant about this. and I want them to be able to get along with all cultures, all nations. That's kind of the way I grew up. England is a little bit different. It doesn't have quite the same history that America does. However, racism is everywhere. The way I grew up, my class had, I'd say, one of every nationality represented, and that's how myself, my family grew up.
Yeah.
And so I try and convey that to my kids, and it's been positive.
So having the perspective of having grown up outside of the U.S., do you see ways that things that this country could be doing that we haven't tackled yet, that could move us in a forward positive direction?
Well, and I've seen very similar things in England. It may not be as publicized, or now there's more cameras out.
Yeah.
I think if people would listen instead of judging first. Everybody has backgrounds. Everyone has different ways that they've been brought up. I think to get past some of the stereotypes that are out there and some of the inner hard feelings, you have to listen to people, and not just people of color. We've got to listen to each other. What I find sometimes is when I tell somebody what I'm going through or what I've been through or an experience that I've had, they dismiss it like it's fake or, well, that's what you think. And they're not really listening to what I'm saying.
Yes. On that note, there aren't a lot, when things happen, there's not a lot of, it doesn't come out necessarily into the light of day. So a lot of things happen, and then it seems like, or there is a large amount of denial that those things didn't happen. Do you find this to be true? Do you find that there are incidents happening all the time in our Black and brown communities, even locally, that people just don't, the wider community does not know?
Absolutely. And I have a lot of white friends, and I always have. I find that if they don't see it, some people, they want to accept it, and they say, wow, is that really happening? Mm-hmm. But it's hard to grasp if they don't see it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, even when they do see it, mm-hmm. I don't know, again, depending on your background, you may pass it off as, well, it was only this, or it was only that. Yeah. So, yes, I definitely do see that.
Is there anything else that is on your mind that you would like to tell us or say to the community?
You've seen this little protest demonstration. It's peaceful. It's bringing the point across peacefully. People are recognizing that. I think the greatest thing is if we can stand together, recognize that there is a problem. That's the first thing, is recognizing there is a problem. And then having not just the Black community, the white community, the Latino community, address it. Stand with us and say, you know what, we recognize this also. This is enough. Something has to be said, something has to be done. I think voices are powerful, and something like this is very powerful.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with you. I think we as Latino community that we can speak for, we have an obligation to stand with you and to do that, to stand with the Black community. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.